Okay, amazing. It looks like we have everyone, so we can get started. First of all, thank you so much for having us. We're absolutely delighted to be here, and we're just going to take a few minutes to introduce our speakers, and then we'll jump right into successful outreach planning. So my name is Ira. I'm a sophomore in college right now. I'm a Space Cookie alum, and I'm studying computer science and business. Kathy, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hey everyone, I'm Kathy. I'm also an alum from Space Cookies, and I'm in college studying computer science.
Amazing. And Arshia?
Hi, I'm a senior on the Space Cookies, and I'm the current First Connections Director.
Amazing. So now we can jump right into it, and Kathy has some fast facts about Space Cookies.
Yeah, so just as a quick overview of who we are as a team. So we're from the Space Cookies. We are an all-girls team consisting of 52 girls from 22 different high schools all across the Bay Area in California. We were founded by NASA and the Girl Scouts in 2006 and have been competing ever since. And what's really cool is that we are also a Girl Scout troop. So as we kind of talk about our outreach, you'll see how that ties into like what we focus on. And one cool fun fact about us is that we are actually the first all-girls team to reach Einstein at the Houston World Championships, which was a super incredible accomplishment and milestone. And just in everything that we do, we kind of focus it on our mission, which is to inspire and prepare the next generation of technology leaders. So how do we go about achieving that mission? Well, we have 12 different keys to kind of like what we call like our keys to outreach success. And so today we're just going to go through each one of them.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with our first key, which is setting goals for your team. So here at the Space Cookies, our outreach range from like volunteer work to like a local community to sustained relationships with our sponsors. And then obviously we do a lot of work with other first teams. So in order to figure out a way to effectively measure how we're doing against some type of metric, we think it's very important for your team to set certain goals in the beginning before you start planning outreach events. So when you're planning, you can kind of measure against them to see how successful you are. And one thing we're more focused on is measuring the impact of our outreach versus just how many people we interact with. So it's not only about the numbers, but also the impact that you make. So some of the goals, example goals that we set in these previous years before planning our outreach events were providing hands-on STEM experiences. So not just teaching people STEM, but getting them to interact with it. Inspiring youth to become involved with STEM. So we really focus on young girls and getting children involved early on so we can really like inspire them to pursue a STEM career in the future. Expanding first presence in and beyond our community. So we work with first teams at all levels, helping other first teams succeed. It's really important to set a role model team for like other first teams and help them in any way we can. And then lastly, we said to implement impactful projects focused on diversity and inclusion. And you'll really see that goal come through more in the end. But as an all-girls team, we do focus on like diversity inclusion of gender and also like other innovation projects, how we can tie that into like doing different initiatives in competitions. You'll see at the end with our Me Too thing. So. And then if you can go to the next slide. Our second key is know who you want to reach and establish plans for each audience. So before you plan an outreach event, it's important on knowing who you work with. So we've made like adjustments to this audience due to COVID-19, but we'd still continue our work with a lot of the audiences during the pandemic. So one of our first audiences are first teams. So we continue to mentor and assist other first teams in the community and around the world. We are a Girl Scout troop as well as a robotics team, so we do focus on reaching Girl Scouts, participating in Girl Scout events, and leading workshops for Girl Scout STEM badges. And then we also focus on our local and extended communities, going to any outreach events that we're invited to, and saying yes to any opportunities that come our way. And then we also try to maintain relationships with sponsors. If they're having any events that they want us to present at, we'll always be there. And obviously, as an all-girls team, we do focus on reaching girls and women in particular. A lot of that does happen through Girl Scouts, but we also try to do that in our local community as well. And so now I'll pass it on to Arshia to talk about FIRST outreach.
So next, we are going to be talking about some of the outreach that we do in FIRST and how we make an impact within FIRST communities and FIRST teams. So key number 3 is to work with all levels of FIRST. While you don't have to work as extensively with all levels, it is a really good start to make sure you're trying to get involved with FLL, FTC, and FRC as much as you can. Some of the things that we have done is we've started FRC teams. We always make sure to help with the resources, such as opening our lab to teams and hosting them. Or we also have a resource called the Cookie Jar, where a lot of times during competitions, we work with other teams to make sure we can get together and give resources for international teams that are traveling and that are not able to bring as many resources overseas. And always being open to mentorship and supporting teams as much as we can. FLL, we have started and mentored the Phoenix Firebirds and the Golden Surfers for almost 13 years, and we continue to mentor them and help them throughout their season. A really fun way is to also mentor other teams and communities that you care about. We host tournaments as well, which is a great way for a lot of other girls to get into helping teams, and hosting tournaments is a really fun way to get into it. Some of the other mentorship that we do is we have a cookie hotline during build season where people are open to ask us questions, whatever they have about build season or just about anything, whether that's mechanical, programming, business. First, in general, if they have any questions about their team, we're always open to answering people's questions and just making sure that we are able to help them to the best of our abilities. So key number 4 is to encourage everyone on your team to get into outreach and get involved with outreach. A really, really fun way to do that is FLL mentoring. It's great for outreach training, and usually we encourage a lot of our girls to get into it, whether it's by mentoring, hosting the tournaments. It's honestly so much fun to work with younger kids and be able to introduce them into STEM and FIRST. So FLL, what you do is you're taking them through their entire season, from teaching them how to code, building the Lego robot, whether it's developing a game strategy on how they want to approach certain challenges in their games, and also working on their innovative project, which they end up presenting during their during the competition. You can either create an FLL team, or you can work with already established FLL teams and figure out a way to get in touch with them, or go through some other teams that work with FLL teams, such as the Space Cookies, and find out if you can help FLL teams or other community teams in your community. Key number 5 is to make sure you're investing in long-term relationships to create meaningful FIRST pathways. The biggest way to be able to create an impact in outreach is to make sure that you're doing it for many years and you're able to continue it on through many levels. An example of this is the FIRST pathway that we have created in East Palo Alto, which starts with our FLL teams, the Golden Surfers and the Phoenix Firebirds. And in 2019, we helped to start Team 8048, which was the first FRC team in East Palo Alto. We spent the summer with them, working with them in our lab and building a robot with them. We've spent countless numbers of hours to help them build the robot and really launch their team. They built their own robot last year during the 2020 competition, and they've been doing amazingly so far. They've won multiple awards from 2019, 2020, and they've continued to do really well this season as well.
Yeah, so now I can kind of take over and go more into the Girl Scout outreach that Space Cookies does. Next slide. Okay, so this is our key number 6, which is commit deeply to an organization that reflects your team's passion. And for Space Cookies, this is Girl Scouts. We obviously have a deep connection with Girl Scouts, as we are a Girl Scout troop in addition to a robotics team. So one of the main things that we focus on as Girl Scouts are hosting badge workshops for Girl Scouts in our community. So how Girl Scout badges work is that they would do like small activities in different areas, and they would earn like a badge for a certain area. So for example, like there's a badge about math called like Never Navigator, and they'll do like 3 or 4 like small activities, like learn different things about math, and then they would like earn that Never Navigator badge. So what Space Cookies would do was create a badge workshop program to help Girl Scout troops earn their badges, and especially the STEM badges that Girl Scout offers and badges that we made ourselves. We would also do tours at competition. So this picture is a picture of some girls that we took around the pit at FRC competitions just so they can get excited and see like what robotics is really like. We also support Girl Scouts in any major events that they're hosting. So Golden Gate Bridging is a major event they host where we demo our robot, we explain robots to the Girl Scouts there. Craftapalooza is also an event where we run badge workshops. We have multiple stations, like demo stations with our robot, info stations, like interactive activities, and like all of the above. And not only can they earn their badges, but they can also learn about robotics and possibly like join it in the future. And then we also do first STEM pledge kits. So that's an initiative that we created to kind of scale the idea of helping other robotics team host their Girl Scout tours. So we successfully hosted Girl Scout tours in different first robotics regionals in like the US and Canada, but we wanted to help other teams organize this as well. So we kind of created a guide to teach teams how to reach out to their local Girl Scout troops and councils so they can also organize tours for Girl Scouts at their competitions. So that was the first STEM pledge kit. And so overall, like we're really working with an organization, Girl Scouts in this case, to try to like create that deep connection. And our goal is to obviously help girls earn more STEM badges and get them excited about robotics and STEM in general. And so if you go to the next slide, we can kind of see how we transitioned this into the virtual times. So we had a badge workshop virtually where girls created a mini robot. As you can see, she's holding it and they earned their robotics badges. She's holding it in her left hand. So we did this completely virtually, like each girl got this kit and we explained how to do it over Zoom. So everything we're saying is definitely adaptable to the virtual atmosphere. And now I can pass it off to Arshia to talk more about community outreach.
Okay, thank you, Era. Another big thing that we do is community outreach. Of course, it can get over the pandemic. It was really hard, but we started doing in-person outreach again. In fact, this picture is from last weekend at an event that we did called Robots on Ice, where we demoed our robot and we did hands-on STEM activities with more than 50 kids. And it was such a great time being able to really get back and working on events outside again. So key number 7 is to be responsive to opportunities to showcase STEM to large audiences. A really great way and a really effective way to be able to get into outreach and really spread your reach to like a large audience is to take on opportunities that you get at maybe it's like science fairs, maybe it's like community events, any like big events where there's going to be a lot of people. Some of the ones we've done over the years are either like the Maker Faire or the Bay Area Science Festival or other like STEM expos. We always do robot demos and hands-on activities at these like large audiences, and it's honestly just a great way to be able to spread what you're doing and to be able to connect with a lot of people at one event. An example of this is over the previous summer, we spent hours building a farm bot for the city of Palo Alto, which is a robot that basically does the entire farming process by itself, from planting the seeds to irrigation and pulling out weeds. It does everything by itself. And we built it over the summer, and it is currently situated at the Palo Alto City Library, where so many people are exposed to like the wonders of what like robotics and stuff can do in like our daily lives. Key number 8 is to model kindness and compassion for your local community. A lot of what we've done so far is really helping other like younger kids or like showcasing robots. But I think a really big thing about outreach is to make sure you're really being kind and to like your local community. And that can be done in so many ways that don't have to include a bunch of like fancy stuff, such as we've done like holiday cards for elders in the community, or recently for Veterans Day, we made thank you cards. Over the pandemic, we also made COVID-19, we made masks, and to really just like help out for as many people as we possibly could. I'm going to pass it on to Kathy, who's going to talk to us about sponsors.
Yeah, so all of our sponsors are so amazing, and we really wouldn't be able to do what we do without the support of our sponsors. And so we make an effort to, show appreciation for the sponsors by being available for them whenever we can. And so a lot of times this will look like just sponsors will have events and they'll invite us to attend these events, and we'll like demo our robot, or we'll volunteer by just like helping out at the different booths. And so this is actually a picture from a couple holiday seasons ago, but NASA has this holiday party. And so the girls get to come and get into like the festive spirit and help out at the event, as well as just demo the robot. And so it's always a really great way to like maintain your sponsor relations is by seeing what kind of outreach events you can do with your sponsors, and just making sure that you're available for them to show your appreciation for all of their help. And so these are just kind of like a couple other events that we go to that are held by our sponsors. All right. So the last kind of big overall idea that we wanted to focus on is the diversity and inclusion outreach that we do. It's always really important that like we focus a lot of our outreach on increasing diversity and increasing inclusion in FIRST, in robotics, and in STEM in general. And so what we found is that the way to make the most meaningful impact and like to reach like the community that means a lot to us is by just thinking what sorts of what areas do we want to focus on that means a lot to our team. And so as an all girls team, we are all mentorators. And so one thing that we wanted to focus a lot on was just opening up the conversation on like menstrual equity in robotics. And so how we did over the past year, we focused on kind of making sure that at all of the events that we've attended, all of the tournaments, that we've had menstrual products available for anyone who needs them and make them easy to access. And so these are a couple of girls setting it up at one of the off-season competitions that we went to this past fall. And so kind of like the next key is just like focusing on equity and inclusion in a way that is like meaningful for your team. And so there's so many different directions you can take outreach to make robotics more equitable, more inclusive for all. And so we found that finding a way that is meaningful for your team. So for us, it's like through our initiative for we called it Me First. And this is like what we're focusing a lot on this year. Our goal is to essentially make sure that menstrual products are available for free and easily accessible at every single FIRST competition this year. And so we've been working a lot with tournament directors, with other teams, with girls on our own team to try to set this up. But finding ways to like increase diversity and increase inclusion in ways that are meaningful for you is like a great way to kind of start thinking of ways like what sorts of initiatives you and your own team want to work on. And so finally, obviously, just, getting other teams involved in your outreach and being able to like spread your impact so that you can reach like the greater community. And so some ways we do that is, as Ira mentioned earlier, with our Girl Scout STEM Pledge Kit, we want to get help, Girl Scouts all across the country, but we're obviously not going to be at like every tournament or like in every state. And so being able to recruit other teams to help Girl Scouts in their own communities earn robotics badges and get inspired to even join robotics. And so that's we have our STEM Pledge Kit, which it makes it super easy for other teams we teach them everything. So like, how do you reach out to your local Girl Scouts, right? To like email templates that you can send to set up events and all sorts of other sort of help guides. And our other initiative is the Me First initiative. And so we are inviting other teams to help organize having like pads and tampons and other menstrual products at their own events. And so other teams can always sign up to become a Me First ambassador. So just always thinking about how can we like spread our outreach so that we can get other teams to join in on it and make a greater impact. And the final key is just sharing our keys to success, which we are doing right now. And so if any of our, especially the last two initiatives, which we would love for all other teams to like come join us, if you are interested at all, we've left our email and our website here. And so definitely feel free to reach out. We love working with other teams. Yeah. And I believe that is it for our presentation. And we'd be happy to take any questions.
Well, we remind to the attendees that they can ask in the Q&A section. Here we have one. How do you know which activities to do each year?
I can take this one. So how we decide what activities to do really starts from how we set our goals. So in the beginning, our first key was setting our goals about like what we want to do and what we want to accomplish. And then we really go from there. Honestly, like as an established team, we have like things like activities that we do every year and events that we do every year. That's just reoccurring. And then for new initiatives, it really starts from a goal that we made and then designing an initiative around it. So for example, like for our Girl Scout tours, we knew our goal was to expose Girl Scouts to robotics. So we had a brainstorming session with our team, like how do we get Girl Scouts involved in robotics other than what we've already been doing? And that's how we came up with giving them tours at competitions. And then once we gave them tours at competitions, we were like, okay, how do we scale this? We obviously can't be at every competition giving them tours. So then we were like, okay, let's make the STEM pledge kit so we can teach other teams to give Girl Scouts tours at competitions. So it really starts with a goal of what you want to do and then a brainstorming session on how you can accomplish that goal. And then you would just do that at the beginning of every year so you can stay focused.
We have another question from an anonymous attendee. How do you measure the impact of your activities?
Yeah, so I can take this one. So obviously, like the qualitative way of measuring the impact is just like by the number of attendees, or like usually like we'll have like an estimate of like how many people are at the event and then also how many people stop by our booth and like we talk to. But then also we don't want like impact to just be a number. And so we want to make sure that, if we're gonna say we like worked with X number of like FLL teams, we also want to make sure that, there's the outreach we're doing is sustainable. And so we'll like work with them and like we'll try to create different outreach programs that can keep them keep doing STEM as they get older. And so, for example, in like with our East Palo Alto FLL teams, we wanted to make sure that they still had the opportunity to participate in robotics in high school, like once they graduated from our FLL teams. And so that's what kind of inspired our work with helping create the FRC team in the area. And so just kind of like impact in a way where yes, it's like we measure by like number of people reached, but also just like how sustainable our impact is.
Do you think money is a setback when you do activities?
I can take this one. For us, we try to see like, okay, money is a setback. It could be a setback because in order to like buy materials and like, as we said, like we hosted that virtual event with Girl Scouts, obviously like buying those materials and sending them out to all the Girl Scouts is like a financial obligation. However, we try to like mitigate that by like applying to grants early on and like writing about the outreach that we do to our sponsors so that they do like fund our events. But I would say that if a team doesn't have like funds allocated to do outreach, there are a lot of ways to do outreach that aren't too expensive. So for example, like just doing lectures or like activities involving like coding or software can be pretty inexpensive. And there's a lot of free things online that you could utilize to like do those types of outreach events. So I do think like some of our outreach events are like more on like the expensive side, but it's not a requirement to like have good outreach to like spend money. So there are ways to like adapt it to whatever resources that are available to you. And all you really need to have is like the expertise on like STEM and robotics and like a passion of like explaining it to others in order to do the outreach.
And just to kind of add on to that, a lot of sponsors actually really like to see like help out teams that are doing outreach. And so, for example, this year we actually got a grant from Johnson & Johnson that was specifically for outreach. So if you're looking to like if you're interested in like hosting these kinds of outreach events, like just be sure to look out for like specific grants that you can apply to them.
On the same subject of the outreach, do you have like a specific season when you like do them, or it's throughout the year?
So I can take that one. Technically, as an overall outreach, we do it throughout the entire year. A lot of like the events that we go to is usually done in like the fall before build season, such as like any of like science fairs or any like events that we do outside with kids. But even throughout build season, all of our outreach concerns over helping other teams navigate their way through their season, such as our resources, such as cookie hotline, cookie jars, or like the helpline that we have. These are ways that we get in touch with other teams who are going through the season, and we try to help them in the moment if they have any questions. So we do try to connect it throughout the entire year. Sometimes it's like focusing on different things, but overall as outreach, it is over the entire year.
Now we have a question from rookie teams. What do you recommend to our rookie team to begin with regarding outreach activities?
I can take this one. As a rookie team, it's really exciting to get started with outreach for the first time. So honestly, I would start small. It's important with your goals to be realistic and do something that you can feel accomplished with when, like, after you see if you met your goal or not. So something simple like this year, we want to host an event where we teach X concept to like 20 kids from our like local middle school. Somewhere where you have ties to also helps. Like, so a lot of teams are like from high school. So like starting in a community where you know that you'll be welcome instead of trying to like reach too far out and then like building up from there. So like a very concrete goal like that, I think is a really great place to start. And you'll learn a lot from planning a small event like that. And then it'll really help you in future years when you're looking to expand and like build a brand for yourself when it comes to outreach. But I definitely start with a very small, specific goal and in your local community where you already have an influence.
Another question is, how do you select the objectives of your activities?
Yeah, so how do we kind of like come up with the goals of like our activities? And so as we mentioned sort of a lot earlier with our first key is just like finding goals that are meaningful to your team and like creating outreach initiatives that focus on it. So for example, for us, because we're a Girl Scout troop, we wanted to make sure that a lot of our outreach focused around like getting young girls, especially Girl Scouts, into STEM. And so I think just like coming up with what areas do you want, like what areas are meaningful to your team, and like what sorts of ways can you help out your own communities, and using that as like the building blocks to coming up with like goals for your outreach.
Well, lastly, I don't know if you have any advice or comment for the teams in this season.
Wait, like, can you repeat the question? Like general advice for outreach this season?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's like a tough one. Give me a second.
I can start off with some advice. Well, now that things, I don't know, with the pandemic and it's all very weird, but as things start to kind of go back in person, like do like whenever, if you're able to have like in-person events, definitely like enjoy them. Like they're always a lot of fun, but even if you have like your virtual events, like, and coming up with creative ways to engage with others in your community virtually is, I don't know, that's like my advice, I guess.
Yeah. Another thing I would say is take advantage of all the resources around you. So whether that means like reaching out to like local companies or like libraries or anything like that, like cold emailing places, like asking people for help. It's definitely hard to do like an outreach event all on your own, and it's like very daunting. But like just know that there's a lot of people out there that'll support you and help you, and you just have to ask. So like we presented all of these like things that we do and events that we go to, but like behind that it's like a lot of like we applied to sponsorships, like we have like a lot of people in the background helping us, and we had to ask for help. So I think my main advice is just to ask for help and don't be scared to like do that.
Well, thank you, girls, for your amazing conference, and I hope to see you soon. I think we're going to see you at the regional. And yeah, it was amazing.
Definitely. Thank you guys so much for having us. It was great presenting, and we loved getting so many questions from the audience, and it was really engaging. So thank you so much. And this is a great outreach event that you guys are hosting, and we're so glad that we could be here. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And good luck everyone with this upcoming season.